Hey Matt, how's it going?
I'm going good, Steve. How are you?
Yeah, good. We got some very serious things to talk about today on the Risk Control
Yes.
Show. This is
Yes,
Steve
we do.
Wilmes and Matt Kita, and we're here to talk about sexual molestation and abuse cases. And kind of, in California, we've moved the date, the number of years back that someone can file a claim against a school district in the
Yes.
event that they were sexually abused or molested. And that's causing a lot of problems. Number one, we're seeing a lot of claims. We're seeing a lot of insurance carriers not wanting to write this because they're just massive, massive, massive payouts
Right.
and jury awards. And reinsurers are getting tired of it too. And we need to put some things in place to make sure that we are trying to control this type of very, very naughty and terrible and criminal behavior, actually.
Yes.
So, if you are the school district and you obviously are not condoning this, but you have to defend it. One of the problems that we're running into is that we can't seem to find the insurance policies that you had from 18 years ago
Right.
or 21 years ago or whatever it may be. So you really need to start to put together an insurance tracking program. Make sure you're getting copies of your policies. Make sure you're maintaining those policies in their original form that you were provided, and any addendums, any changes that come across. Because again, sometimes you have to hire a forensic expert, right, Matt?
Right. Right.
I mean, it it's it's just one of those things where it's worth the money to do it, but the time and effort is really
Yeah. It's
can all
significant.
all it can just all be completely avoided if you have a good program to make sure you got copies of this stuff, right?
Yes.
So scan it in, make a copy, keep an archival copy of it, and if you have claims, then you can go back to that. You may have coverage for it, and your attorneys and your current insurer can all start to look at that stuff to
Yeah.
see what kind of coverage you have. But if not, then you got to hire this forensic expert. They got to start to piece together things. Maybe they look for certificates that were issued, or your old RFPs, or anything that may be listed there, old claims, stuff like that, that they can find little tidbits of data. But it's just a nightmare if you don't maintain copies.
Right.
And
Right.
no, go ahead.
Ex- well, I mean, look, it's not about like liability and like trying to protect the district from the situation. We understand that these kinds of situations they unfortunately happen, and I understand, and I know Steve does as well, why the state chose to expand that window. But these problems, look, you still have a responsibility to the district as a whole to make sure that you're financially solvent and that you can handle this. And if you don't have that insurance policy on hold to protect the district and protect the children and the community that you are currently serving from those massive jury amounts that you were talking about, Steve,
Right.
it's a very, very serious issue. It's serious all around. There's no getting a way around it, but you have to be careful. Record keeping, I think, is something that is sometimes it's a lost cause. Wouldn't you say, Steve? Not a lost cause, but a lost art,
It's a
shall we
lost
say?
art for sure.
Yeah.
And I think even on the day to day, in the midst of I mean, I was just out, that darn chlorine testing is just, it keeps coming up with great examples. And one of the examples that came out of this was the record keeping. And we got on a side discussion about training. And they were like, hey, what other trainings do you do? I have hazardous waste operator that I need? And I'm like, yeah, we do that, And the supervisor said, hey, do you send certificates? And I'm like, of course.
Right.
We send certificates. We send the sign-in sheet. We keep copies of it. We send it to the 3 points of contact that we have at your agency. And he's like, yeah, well, when this OSHA showed up and they asked for records, I didn't have them because the person that used to handle that has retired, and now they've split this up and there's no central repository. And
Right.
I want to make sure I get a copy. I said, I'd be happy to send you a copy. I said, but again, like if OSHA shows up and you don't have it, call us, because we'll dig through, and we have a very good record keeping system, and we'll send it to you, no problem, right? And it goes back to that whole thing. We're talking records from a year ago. Like,
Yep.
can't even keep track of that. So you need to be able to maintain copies of all this stuff. The state has a record keeping manual, right? A lot of agencies adopt this. A lot of them massage it and make their own. But
Right.
when we come down to it, it's like, okay, what'd you do with it? Where is it? How do you find those?
Yep.
Easily, right? And
Yep.
so it's complicated now because you get so many documents. Like, you just start generating documents everywhere.
Right.
Word documents, Excel documents. Oh, look at this one. Rename it. Change this. And it's like, okay, I just can't even tell you how many documents I have on my computer that,
Wow. I look at some of my folders and I'm like, one day I'll get into that, knowing in the back of my mind, Matt, you're probably
yeah.
never gonna.
And
You're
well,
probably never gonna get
every
into
every
that.
week I go and I clean. I clean my desktop. I clean. I organize, put it in the client files, all that kind of stuff. But even so,
Right.
like, sometimes that if you don't follow the naming convention, if someone sends you a document and you don't follow the naming convention, you got issues. But this is
Yep.
something like, if you're not the risk manager, if you're not in charge of insurance, these are the questions that you need to ask. Like, how many years back can you go on our insurance policies? Do you have copies of it? What is who's got access to it? Where is it kept? All those types of things. And remember, you got a multitude of policies. A lot of times you have a reinsurance policy. You may have a work comp because you broke that out from maybe a JPA, or you bought these things independent. Are you self-insured? Like, you just don't know. So you got a lot of policies to keep track of, and you need to come up with a system to do it.
Right. And heaven forbid, Steve, if you should happen to switch systems. Because
Right.
like
Oh.
we talk about that. We have some clients that have recently made a record keeping system switch, and it's caused how many problems would you say it's caused, Steve?
I don't know. Well, I could just tell you, like Laco changed accounting systems, and what a nightmare. Nobody got paid for 11 months if you were in the third
Yep.
wave. I mean, it's just crazy. And, that alone, and like vendors are getting upset, and they're like, oh, you can't get any more toner cartridge for your copiers.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's just unreal. But yeah, I was talking to an IT person who, for a major cable type company, and she was saying, hey, look, we change, like, they were in SQL, and then they changed to this, and they changed it. And she's like,
Right.
our team is supposed to be generating report. They keep changing systems. The field names aren't the same. You just learn the schema, and then boom,
Boom.
they change
Yeah.
it again. It's like, why do you keep changing these systems? They were with AWS, then they're with this one, and they're with that one. And it's like, it's just a nightmare. And she's like, every time we make a switch, we lose data. Every time.
Yeah.
So in this age of big data, you would think that these things would be easy to do. They're not.
No.
And you just have to make sure you have a system. Again, the best system I like, make a hard copy and put it on the shelf.
Yep. That's the best way to do it. It's funny. I thought of a live example of exactly what you're talking about. Like if let's say you're painting on the side of a car, like you're putting your phone number on the car, and
Right.
you've got your what do you call it? Your pattern
Right.
so that you can paint over it. Well, imagine that your old system, all your old data is all the paint in that canister.
Right.
And then the only thing that gets through is the numbers on the side of your truck.
Right.
And all
Exactly.
the other data that goes on to the filter gets thrown away.
Yeah.
I know exactly what this
Yeah.
person was talking about.
Yeah.
And every single time you do that, it's a new loss.
Right. Yeah. Well, I can tell you, like going back to the hard books and everything. When I worked for a large JPA, and we had moved offices, I had taken over a lot of the hard books that my predecessor had, and I brought a lot of my own. And that my predecessor said, "Hey, look, like these books." He had a like the really valued set was there, but
Right.
he's like, "Look, these books are out of print." But it's the only thing that spoke to the safety of like a 5-star base on a chair when it comes to ergonomics. And so a lot of times people say, well, do you have a reference for that? And you may be a safety expert and be on the same, have all the same designations as this person that wrote the book. But because they wrote the book and it was in publication, and you can give a reference to that, it lends so much more credibility, right?
Yep.
So we move office, and I have like carts and carts of books that they bring over, and I come in after the weekend, and one of my colleagues is throwing my books away.
Ooh.
And I'm like, what are you doing? And you don't need all this. You don't know what I need. Like, mind your own business. It's my office. If I want to load it up with books, I will. And I had a complete library. Well, the other thing that this is a great example of actually maintaining hard copies of the original documents, because now all the legislation is on the web, and they make changes and they don't show you strikeouts and all this. So unless you have an old version of it, you're kind of out of luck. So we were facing I think it was like $70 million of inspection fees for our school district clients. And the whole point was that the state fire marshal had changed the definition of maintenance, inspection, and testing. And they required a C16 license for some of these things. And I went before the state fire marshal and I argued that, hey, you changed the definition and this is causing a lot of fees, and it's unfair that a C16 licensed firm can go out and hire an 18-year-old kid out of high school and put them under their license and they can do these inspections, but yet my public agency employees who have been doing these for 25 years can no longer do them.
Right.
Like, it makes no sense. We didn't change the definition. I opened up the book. I said, read here, read here. Boom. You sure as hell did. And, it's irritating. But unless you have that hard copy, you're not going to be able to prove it. So a lot of times, again, how many years are we going back? 20 years? And insurance policies maybe that thick. Like you can put 5 binders on there and have them year by year by year, and they're there. So come up with a system. I don't really care what it is, but come up with a system that is there and is workable, and have an electronic copy of it, of course, so you can print more. But that hard copy is just quick and easy, and then you can do a summary of it too, like, hey, what was the coverage that we have? What were the layers? Well, who was the reinsurer? Did we have SAM protection or not? And then you're good to go. Well, I'm pooped out on that one, man. I just like I just gave a whole bunch of dirt on the insurance industry that I probably shouldn't have.
But we don't have to tag them in this video. We can leave them off of this.
You know, it's so funny. I've worked for some insurance companies over the course of my time, and it's just funny to me that they're like, they go out and they beat everybody over the head. Like, oh, you need this policy. You need that policy. Where's ours? We don't even have one. Like, you know, unreal, man. Unreal. You know, I just think back to that, like, it's just crazy. But,
yeah,
you know, some of the biggest companies that I've worked for some Fortune 500 companies, some of the biggest ones, the way I managed the programs were very basic, but I would put my people up against anybody in the industry. You know, It's like I worked for one in the Midwest, very large. We had 16 floors. I was able to evacuate the 16 floors, 5,000 people in under 12 minutes and have everyone accounted for.
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did we do it? You know, old school. We did it old school. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, and my time's even better than that, but I'm not gonna really push it. But you know, just total evacuation, total accountability, and again, we weren't using phones and we weren't using radios. We were using run the dang piece of paper down here and check it off. You know.
Yep.
And that's the way it was done.
Yep.
But, all right. Well, I'm a grumpy old man.
Shake fist at sky.
Yeah. Let's make a movie about all the behind the scenes stuff. That would be great. All right. We'll see you on the next episode, folks. Don't forget to check us out on Udemy and also Dollar Training Club, and subscribe to our web so that you get all the latest and greatest podcast videos and little tips and tricks and blog posts and all that kind of stuff. We are the kings of risk management here. I mean, when it comes to that, we do it all and we know it all. Yep. And I'm bragging. I am.
you have the resume.
No, I don't. No, I don't. But I'm just teasing a little bit. But yeah, send us your questions and comments. We'd love to see what those are and see if we can help in any way. Talk to you soon.